So pure. Just so free. And true. Keep on living our lives. And peace. So pure. So pure. Reaching out, burning from inside. Worry for love that remains deep in our souls and our veins. Hear me now, the Lord is my daylight. You set my love on fire, my treasure, my highest high. Love will be so free and true. Keep on living our lives and peace, so pure. 'Cause in love will be so free and true. Keep on living our lives and peace, so pure. 'Cause in love will be so free and true. Keep on living our lives and peace, so pure. Just cause in love will be so free and true. Keep on living our lives in peace, so pure, so pure, 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 pure.
The music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, welcome back to everyone who is inside, and for those who are outside, we are going to be starting up again. I understand that networking is a fun activity, and I am so sorry that I'm stopping it halfway, but there will be more opportunities a little bit later on. Did you have a great time visiting the stalls? Yes, you did. Wonderful, wonderful. That's excellent. I think that the stalls outside are a perfect representation of innovation unleashed in Africa. Being able to see what African tech is all about and being able to see what innovation could lead to if it is unleashed. Now, there is a prize that I'm supposed to talk to you about, two prizes. First, Meta Press. For those of you who visited Meta Press, or if you haven't visited that store yet, they are holding an exciting competition over the course of the next 2 days. So if you visit the booth, you stand a chance to win one of 3 premium passes valued at 1,350 Rand each. So we are inviting you to visit the booth for more information, and winners will be announced daily. So if you haven't visited that booth yet, that is a great booth to visit. And then back to social media, as you know, if you are going to tweet us, use the hashtag Centech Africa Tech Week, and at Africa Tech Week as well on Twitter, and you stand a chance of winning a Take a Lot voucher. You have no idea how much it's valued at. That's the surprise. So make sure that you are entering that competition as well. So I'm going to ask you to look to your left and look to your right and see if your partner is sitting next to you. If not, it's your responsibility. It means you lost someone. So if your person isn't sitting next to you, start telling them it's time to get back now so that we can start the session. I hope that you practice some of the words and some of the greetings that we used in South Africa. Did any of you say awe to some people outside? Yes? Did that slide into the conversation easily? Yes? No? We're working on it. Okay. If someone referred to you as bra, brew, bro, it's gender neutral. That's just the term. So just accept it as is if they were interacting with you. I'm going to get a thumbs up from the tech team to see if we can go ahead with the program as we wait for everyone else to come in. Wonderful. And so next up, we are going to have another exciting tech talk. And we've even got a new mega trend. So the mega trend that we are going into in this session is called Reg Tech. And Reg Tech is all about navigating regulatory tech, data, and cybersecurity, which we started to tap in on a little bit at the end of our last discussion. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Chief Product Officer of LexisNexis, Mr. Terence Naidu, who is going to come and talk about the future of law. And if it is AI powered, how is technology and artificial intelligence transforming the legal sector? So join me as we welcome on stage Mr. Terence Naidu. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I just thought that, like, in terms of starting, what I will be doing is taking you through the evolution of the legal tech space over the next couple of years. And in terms of how you can gear your businesses to be ready for the future. And that's what we at LexisNexis are doing. So what we have wrapped it around with is a purpose where all our staff members strive towards a purpose. And our purpose is about upholding the rule of law. And we have two mandates we've given our people. The first is how do you enhance like the rule of law? And the second is how do you accelerate the access to justice? All our technologies and all the things we do and all the stuff we implemented is centered around these two things. Now, there's lots happening in the space. There is massive changes taking place. We are living, and I truly believe, in the most exciting era of all time. At the moment, you hear news flashes, James Webb telescope that was launched. You find it's actually detected carbon molecules on some planet somewhere, and those carbon molecules can only come from a living organism. So life exists somewhere out there. You talk about quantum is a computing. There is articles coming out by the year 2035. We will have 5,000 like you find it's quantum like computers out there. So what's going to happen in the legal space in the next 20 years? My true belief is that in time, we're going to be having a virtual court and a virtual judge. And in terms of arguments that will be presented by the opposing parties, will be uploaded onto the system, and some AI system will be able to provide an intelligent outcome. The technologies are coming out, so we need to prepare ourselves in terms of how do we get that going. So in terms of what you see here is that what we've done, we've actually mapped out the entire legal ecosystem. And in terms of the ecosystem, what you have is there's some key drivers. We have practice management, we have content delivery, we have decision support, we have productivity tools, communication, you find intelligent workflows, and analytics and prediction. There are three areas which I want to focus on, and something all your businesses need to get geared up and trained up because there's a wave of change coming. In terms of practice management and platforms, and content and prediction, those are the three I want to focus on here because that's where we're investing billions of dollars in this space. In terms of practice management, you all know generative AI capabilities are here. And content, you have generation, like you find AI capabilities that are available today. The question is, how do you go about implementing it in the proper manner? And this is where we spent over 200,000 research hours on how to get this right. So far, we've implemented generative AI capabilities in the US, the UK, Australia. We will recently launch in France, and the next one would be Austria. Following very close in the next couple of months will be South Africa. So how do you get generative AI capabilities plugged into your solution? What you're going to do is, it's besides the tech that you have, you need to get your workforce geared up in terms of prompt engineering. and you need to have subject matter experts. They are not developers. Prompt engineers, there is an art of how you create these prompts that it gives you a precise and concise answer of what you're looking for. The second thing you need to get right is your content source. You cannot just go and trust any ChatGPT system to go out there and crawl content from the web. So part of LexisNexis, our mandate is that we've got the largest legal database in the world. These models are being trained on these databases, and the prompt engineers, where that's the longest time frame. In any of these projects, you start with the prompt engineers, the developers do their bit about the application and hooking it up to some sort of AI model. Then you have what we call as our subject matter experts. Now, these are not one or two people. These are 50 to 100 people that actually sit, and there's prompts that come up, there's answers that come up, and they rate these answers. And in time, this takes you 6 to 8 months, depending on the level or the quantity of people you have and the amount of questions you have to go through. So the real trick about generative AI and using ChatGPT in the proper manner is about how you set these prompts up, what content you have. You've got to have a trusted source. And then the third thing is about training the model. And as you get this going, so what are we training it on? Our very first one is Ask. Ask is a very simple thing where you go onto one of our legal databases, you will type in any question around a case merit. What are the key points? What did the judge say? How do you compare one case against the other? You're asking a conversational question. The next prompt is about drafting. Every one of you in this room have sat to do an agreement together, whether it's a merger, whether it's an MMA, it's a rental for your home or your vehicle. We are building the capabilities. We've got this massive clause bank where the AI, or the generative AI tools, will be able to extract these clauses and create a legally binding contract for you. So that's in the area of drafting. Then we have summarization. How do you summarize content? We have lawyers out there with voluminous amount of work and papers. You'll have the ability to upload this content onto the platform. You can summarize the key points. You can summarize the salient points, opposing arguments, etc., etc. So this is not, and I'm just saying it again, you cannot just go and expect to have access to an AI platform like ChatGPT or Anthropic or Bard or whatever it is. You got to invest the time in terms of training these models. And you train them and you continuously train them. And it's an evolution. And every single day at our company, we are finding more use cases of how we can, like I said, our mandate and our purpose is enhancing the rule of law and accelerating the access to justice. Using generative AI, we're going to get this capability. I'm going to fast forward now when I mentioned that at some point, we're going to have the capability where there'll be a virtual court with a virtual judge. When quantum computing kicks in, you're going to get the next explosion taking place. And I want you guys to really think about that. For every one of you in this audience today that has a child between the ages of 0 and 3, they will never, ever have the experience or know the experience of driving a car. In 25 years or like 20 years' time, it's all autonomous. They will never have that experience. These changes are coming, and based on Moore's law, it's going to happen even quicker. So as a business, you need to start to recognize, I guess my time's up, sorry. I'm just going to go quickly in terms of the timeline, but I'm just saying Moore's law is there, and it has said that there's exponential growth. So what we see, we've got practice management and all the stuff you see which is currently available. We have built tools that is available within our business where we've been gearing ourselves up in terms of this future that's coming. The future, in terms of the legal space, is going to be about the prediction, about the cases, and the intelligent workflows. That's the next step, and you find generative AI is going to help us with that to get there much quicker. And I want to end this in terms of what we have been doing. So speak is cheap, but seeing is something great. And I've got a video to show you of our latest product that we just launched.
A new era in legal research, where you can navigate effortlessly through legal content and access key information and insights with ease. Through a cutting-edge legal research platform designed to empower and support you in today's dynamic legal landscape. Effortlessly access content through reimagined search functionality and browsing capabilities, through advanced search terms and options to customize your search experience, pinpointing content with unparalleled precision. AI-infused technology with modern search capabilities, enabling you to easily find what you're looking for. A managed document capability with ease-to-folder functionalities that efficiently create, save, and share documentation. Unlocked capabilities to swiftly identify patterns and high concentration of your search terms and history across various content types. At LexisNexis, we're attuned to global trends by incorporating the latest innovative technology to adapt and evolve as our market needs. LexisNexis, as a trusted companion in the legal fraternity, aims to streamline legal research so you don't have to. Introducing our Lexis Plus platform, a seamless, innovative solution to legal research.
I just want to close by saying, in terms of South Africa, this is where it starts. We've brought this technology from our global companies down here to SA. You are going to see a radical change in the ecosystem of the legal fraternity in SA. We are investing billions of dollars, and in terms of that dream of the virtual court, that's going to become a reality. You're going to see far more capabilities coming into the legal practice. They're going to be far more efficient. They're going to be far better. They're going to get better decision support. So hope you join us on that journey, and it's going to be an exciting one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Naidu. I have so many questions for you, but I'd love to ask it as soon as the event is done or when we can have networking, but some incredible and exciting things to look forward to coming from LexisNexis. Now, you mentioned something about how in a few years, we're not going to need licenses, need to drive, and I'm thinking I just got manual. I just got it. So that's a bit of a heartbreak for me. But such is development, such is innovation, and such is technology. We are going to be going to a panel discussion at the moment titled Innovative Tech Policies Boosting Intra-African Business and Trade. So joining me on stage, I've got 3 speakers for this panel. One is going to be joining in virtually, and that is Mr. Marumo Nkomo, an economic counselor and the deputy permanent representative of the South African Permanent Mission to the WTO. He's going to be joining us virtually. I think you'll see him very soon. Then we've also got Benedict Mekon-Cooney, the Chief Policy Strategist for the Tony Blair Institute. If you could join me on stage, that would be wonderful. And then lastly, we've got Duduetsang Makuse, who is the Public Policy Manager of SADC Meta. If I could have my speakers on stage with me, and if you could give them a round of applause as they make their way on stage. Welcome. Please grab a seat over here. Yeah. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Have we got our speaker joined in virtually? Yes? Wonderful. Okay, so let's head right into it, starting with a question. So, estimates have placed the amount raised by African startups in 2023 at between $2.9 billion and $4.1 billion as well. As the economic counselor and deputy permanent representative for the South Africans Permanent Mission to the WTO, what does this tell us about Africa's booming tech scene?
Many thanks. I hope I'm audible.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are going to go to a next speaker, and then we're going to back to our virtual question. So I'm going to come to you, Benedict. As a chief policy strategist at the Tony Blair Institute, why does Africa need these policies that safeguard and not stifle innovation?
Well, thank you very much for having me to start with. Well, my sort of perspective of this, and we work in about 40 countries around the world, including many here in Africa. And I think your sort of point here on 4 billion worth of startups is fantastic to see the tech scene beginning to rise here. But increasingly what you're seeing around the world is this huge shift now through AI. And the gentleman before was just talking about exponential growth. And I think people find that hard to conceptualize what it actually means. But the capabilities of what's happening in AI today are increasing at a dramatic pace. And if you take your sort of 4 billion in startups here, I mean, America alone in this last year has invested nearly $1 trillion in AI, and even for a country like the UK, we're looking at that and saying, "Wow!" Like you could be blown away by the sheer magnitude of what is happening today. So I think that every nation around the world will be thinking, well, number one, how do I get on this train? Because it has huge economic impacts, and not just in terms of sort of productivity and economic growth, but across other industries. Secondly, I think it's going to lead to quite profound developments in areas such as biotech and health, as well as even for issues like climate change, where we're increasingly seeing what happens when you have smart energy grids, actually using AI for scientific discovery. So I think there's a series of policy choices that government has to take today. And from my experience, or at least from my view, all of them need to encourage the growth of innovation, this as well as sort of mitigating some of the risks that we see more broadly.
Definitely. I mean, we are seeing technology step into fields that we didn't imagine before, such as the legal space and, like you said, the climate change space as well. I'm going to come back to you, Marumo, and see if we've managed to sort that out. If we can hear you, if you could just say something for me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Wonderful. We can hear you. So back to your question. Speaking about startups and how much money has been estimated in the startup sector, what does this tell us about Africa's booming tech scene?
Thanks so much for the question. First, let me just thank you and the organizers for the privilege of participating in such an auspicious occasion during Africa Month. First, let me say that Africa's tech startups operate in a terrain that's marked by both promise and challenge. Mobile internet adoption has played a crucial role in propelling African SMEs towards prosperity and unlocking the continent's vast potential. Africa's market share of trade in the digital space is still relatively small, but it's been expanding rapidly, outpacing the global average. So, for instance, between 2005 and 2021, the global digital service exports increased by about 41%, while Africa surged by 92%. With a young and dynamic population, the growth potential is immense. Mobile internet adoption stands as a gateway to economic growth and empowerment. It offers African SMEs the opportunity to thrive in an increasingly digital world. Studies show that SMEs that use mobile services intensely witness their revenues grow twice as fast and create up to 8 times more jobs than their peers. Moreover, mobile internet adoption is not just a driver for economic growth, but it's a catalyst for achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. With mobile internet, individuals can gain access to education, healthcare, and government services, which pave the way for inclusive development across the continent. The rise of mobile subscribers is outpacing global trends, and it presents a fertile ground for digital innovation and entrepreneurship. Digital platforms are empowering entrepreneurs and businesses by connecting them with a vast network of clients and customers. Mobile financial services in particular are revolutionizing the way that transactions are conducted. They facilitate instant payments of goods and services, and they are driving financial inclusion. However, despite the rapid expansion of mobile internet, barriers do exist. Affordability remains a critical concern, with many individuals unable to access devices, data plans, or services. Moreover, a lack of knowledge and digital skills, coupled with underdeveloped local digital ecosystems, poses further challenges, and we saw these issues being exacerbated in the context of COVID-19. While many have pivoted towards digital platforms to sustain their businesses, they do face stiff competition from global players, and there's a struggle with limited digital skills and technical infrastructure. So to bridge the digital divide and unlock the full potential of Africa's SMEs, strategic interventions are imperative at both the national and international levels. And of course, I hope we will have some time to talk more about this in the next one.
Thank you so much for that, Marumo. As you mentioned, with some of the challenges that are being faced in the African booming economy, I've got a question for you, Duduetsang. As a public policy manager of SADC Meta, what are some of the examples of these digital platforms, policies at Meta that promote innovation on the continent?
I think the best place to start is probably at the Africa level, as in we're sitting at a moment now where there's a lot of political will behind the adoption of the Africa Free Trade Agreement, right? Recently, we've been talking about the digital protocols as well being signed. That gives us an excellent framework in terms of policy and regulatory frameworks that could be adopted by member states. And some of the challenges that we would then be facing there, which are pre-existing, would be the fact that there's no homogeneous status of anything on this continent. And I think that's one of our biggest hurdles. So from a socioeconomic perspective already, you're having to deal with at least 33 of the signatories being low development countries. So the amount of startup capital that those countries are going to have to be investing into the space just to be at parity with the rest of the other big players, South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria, in order to facilitate that intra-trade is going to be high. So while waiting for the umbrella formulations of what the guidance looks like, there's a big opportunity here for countries to be strengthening their own bilateral agreements and within the blocks as well. That will facilitate and I think will actually speed up the process. So when you start talking about visas, customs, tariff barriers, if you start dissolving some of those challenges in that lower level, at the sub-regional level, you immediately mean that when you start talking about SADC and ECOWAS, already there's a framework in place for what trade between those two regions looks like. So that's the umbrella within which we're operating in when we think of Meta's operations inside of Africa. Now, internally, we're not policymakers, we're not regulators, right? But what we do have is an opportunity to invest. So where do we direct investment in a climate of policy uncertainty, of sometimes aggressive and onerous regulation? We have targeted three fundamental areas, and I think Marumo has already touched on those. One was connectivity, which is the development of the To Africa subsea cable, and it lands in 19 landings in Africa, connecting Europe, Middle East to the continent. So already that means that there's potential for opening up in terms of what is available on the connectivity front, which means there's now infrastructure for both developers and consumers of technology to be operating on. The second area is digital literacy. I think this one is particularly, I don't know, it's nuanced in the sense that you've got this disparity where you're talking about basic literacy at 101 level. How do I create a website, an email, a password, secure it, what's two-factor authentication? And then you move through that all the way to vocational training, such as digital marketing skills, because these are now the spin-off professions that are coming off of the back of the development of different technologies. Then you have to think about things like, well, actually, all of this requires some kind of sensibility around what digital citizenry looks like. What is a responsible digital citizen? And now you require a mind shift. That's not something you can teach in a 6-month course. It's something that has to be embedded into the education curriculum from an early age. So the third area, once you spin off of that, because you would have looked at digital literacy, which if you do it well, could lead to potential economic opportunities, right? Where you have an SMB housing selling a product off of Facebook, having a marketing catalog on Instagram, and conducting business inside of WhatsApp, which is something that we see a lot of on the African continent. And then in addition to that, my colleague is already mentioning AI. AI is one of those opportunities where, because you don't have to be importing necessarily expensive VR headsets, people can actually plug into open source models and start developing models and applications that deal with present problems that Africans are facing. And we've seen this already. We've got at least 12 out of 21 finalists of our large language model impact grant right now are all African. And they've got solutions in health, they've got solutions in education, they've got AI. One of them is called Fundamate. It's an AI-based application on top of WhatsApp that is essentially a study mate for high school students, and it covers all subjects. So the bedrock tech might be imported from the US and provided by Meta, but the application and what's going to actually make the application useful and the adoption high is that it's addressing a local need. And I think these are some of the factors that we need to look at how we can create policies that encourage that.
Indeed, African solutions to African problems. Let's give a round of applause to that, first of all. I think that's very exciting to see. And thank you, Marimo, for reminding us that this is indeed Africa Month. And as you speak about those policies, I'm going to come over to you, Benedict, and ask, what should we be doing to create these policies that foster continental ties around innovation?
Yeah, so I think completely right on some of the things that the African Union and the Free Trade Agreement are doing. It's just fantastic to see. I mean, I worked in President Kagame's office 10 years ago in Rwanda at some of the beginning days of some of those discussions, and I think that's been a really important movement over that last decade as well. I think the point just been made on open source and Llama and some of these changes that are happening is very, very interesting as well, because the democratization of this technology, even though a lot of it is being built by a lot of these big giants in America, it is fusing in a very, very different way to previous waves of technology as well. And so in some ways, I sometimes break down the decisions that governments can make on this in sort of two vectors, which is number one, in technology, really, what you want is your ability to collect, store, and use data. So you need good policies that are actually collecting the right kind of rich data that you can then innovate off the top of it. You've then got various storage solutions for how you then maintain privacy, that citizens feel safe that their data is not being used for bad reasons. And then obviously the ability to use AI for the analytics is where then the real magic happens. And that's where companies like Meta and others over the last 20 years have built their entire business models. And there's, I think, a lot that governments can actually begin to learn from that when they create such a rich array of data on citizens and for various means. So I think that's sort of the number one. But then the sort of second decision tree is kind of your build by partner decisions. And I think data sovereignty and digital sovereignty have long been a conversation, as you say, sort of African solutions for African problems. I think for a number of years, the technology sort of stack that has been available to you has always been a procurement decision, particularly from outside places. And I think the ability to sometimes take these models off the shelf, fine-tune them for your own means, and do a lot around that is changing the ecosystem of that. I think there are going to be some still quite difficult decisions on aspects like the compute stack, which is incredibly expensive for most nations, and building a supercomputer is not often even a viable decision. So I think international consortiums and regional groupings around that will be really, really important, and in partnership with the big sort of hyperscaler companies as well. But then otherwise, I think a lot of those sort of fundamental questions on interoperability, data standards, open standards, and exchange are going to be just incredibly important, because even if you take sort of the ability for Africa to scale will require a lot of inter-regional working, so that these giants that you want to create in your economies will need to be working across the continent. And so I think the more that countries can bind together to encourage that and to create that scale, the better.
If only we would know the power in our unity.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Benedict. And coming back to you, Marimo, we've spoken about the African continent within. Let's look outside of the African continent. What are the challenges that we are facing in fostering those intracontinental ties around innovation and legislation, as well as trade and business?
Yes, no, thanks for the question. I'd say that one of the foremost challenges we face is regulatory fragmentation. I think that Julian made reference to this. The diverse legal systems and varying regulatory environments across African countries make it difficult to harmonize legislation, which in turn raises compliance costs and discourages businesses from expanding across borders. So the United Nations Trade and Development Contact has compiled data on African legislative regimes. Out of 54 African countries that were studied, 33 have e-commerce legislation, 6 have draft legislation, a further 6 have no legislation at all, while no data was available for 9. Conversely, the vision of a unified and prosperous Africa has been a long-standing goal dating back to the Abuja Treaty of 1991, which set the foundation for an African economic community. So to build on this vision, the AFCFTA, or Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, aims to create a single continental market for goods, services, and capital, and fostering economic integration to boost intra-African trade. The digital trade protocol that others refer to requires all state parties to adopt or maintain a legal framework governing electronic transactions. This must take into account relevant standards and guidelines or model laws adopted by relevant regional and international organizations. The aim is to eliminate barriers to digital trade by establishing harmonized rules and common principles and standards that enable and support digital trade for sustainable and inclusive socio-economic development. The protocol will facilitate regulatory convergence and common standards. These initiatives will reduce legal uncertainties and compliance costs, especially benefiting small enterprises. The protocol will enhance interoperability across national systems, allowing smoother cross-border data flows and reducing costs and fostering greater collaboration. Another key challenge is the lack of digital infrastructure. The protocol places an obligation on members to promote the continuous development of digital infrastructure and provide an enabling regulatory environment to enhance the universal access to support participation in digital trade. So while the challenges do remain, the path to a more integrated and innovative Africa is clear. Through the regulatory harmonization and progressive improvements of digital infrastructure under the ACFTA, we can unlock the continent's vast potential, driving growth and fostering thriving intra-continental trade and business environment. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Marumo. And closing off this panel, we'll end off with you, Duretang. And the final question to you is, how can we ensure that digital platform policies are empowering SMEs and driving overall socio-economic development?
I think a big part of it has got to do with the posture of regulation. Remember, regulation initially was really about protecting the public interest, or at least having some kind of guardrails in the use of scarce resources like spectrum. In the digital services space, you don't necessarily need that kind of fixed guardrail that is inflexible. So regulatory sandboxes become very useful here. Opportunities that allow startups to basically tinker and play around and figure out what's the next best thing to do. I think those are key. The other thing that becomes important in this space when you think about SMMEs and the like is exactly the harmonization aspect, because you can't have a situation where you're saying you want to encourage SMMEs or SMBs and the like, and yet you've got these high regulatory barriers where now you've got foreign ownership constraints and all these things that, honestly speaking, a startup is not going to be able to carry those costs, right? So the onerous compliance impositions become too high. And yes, initially when you draft the regulation, you have a Meta or a Google in mind. But what ends up happening is that you're actually imposing that restriction on the very ecosystem that you're trying to develop and grow. So I think we need to also be cognizant of those larger geopolitical tensions in terms of, for example, the US and China trade right now, the tensions there, and then the US wanting to adopt, a posture of closing and being protectionist around some of its technologies, because that's not going to help anyone. But if we're thinking about how to open up the ceiling for those homegrown opportunities, we really have to be pushing our governments to be proactive and to adopt policy that is open, that allows, first of all, for local players to be able to leverage the opportunities. You can still do that by placing particular thresholds so that you know how to capture a Meta and a Google, but you still know how to open up the space for the local guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And to all of our panelists. Now, as we close up, speaking about opening up the ceiling, I'd love to know the African countries that are represented here today. So I know that I've spoken to someone from Zimbabwe. I've spoken to someone from Cameroon. Do we have any other countries represented? You can just shout it out to me. We've got Ghana in the house as well. That's great to see. Kenya is here as well. Estonia is here as well. Nigeria is present as always. South Africa as well. So we really do have the melting pot of Africa before us today, and I encourage you to interact, to network, because this is where it starts. We can't just talk about it in panel discussions. We've got to implement it in person as well. So use this opportunity that is presented to you. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who's been involved, and let's give them a round of applause as we take a seat.
Thank you.
Great. I hope you spotted where people were coming from, so that you can go back and during the break have conversations with them about your inter-Africa trade and Africa tech in general. We are going right into our next mega trend, which is ed tech. So we're speaking about the next generation of upskilling for the future of work and what that has to do with technology. And kickstarting that off, we're going to have a little talk from ALX. So I'm going to invite on stage Devesh Suka from ALX South Africa, who's going to kickstart our mega trend on ed tech. Are you here? Yes, you are. No? Yes? Just going to ask the tech team, do we have Devesh in the room? Yes? Yes. All right. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes on stage. Let's keep those applause going till he gets on stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. Sorry for that. I was trying to get some water and avoid cotton mouth on stage, but it is what it is. Thank you. Lovely to see a full house. My name is Devesh Suka. I'm a lead for South Africa for SAN Technologies in ALX. I'm one of 8 on the continent. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the future of tech, entrepreneurship, the talent development side in the tech space, a little bit of AI, and how we're thinking about solving the problem of youth unemployment and development on the continent. So first, getting into it, who we are and why we exist. So ALX is a technology training provider based on the continent, founded on the continent. The idea is that we equip young people with the most in-demand tech skills globally. We reduce the barriers to entry to get into these courses and into the subsequent work, and I'll tell you what that means by reducing the barriers to entry. And the idea is that we help our learners build their careers in high-growth industries, so where work is, really. We're in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, and our North Star is to enable 2 million young people into dignified employment by 2030. 3 million by 2033, right? Thank you. 3 million by 2033. And those numbers are around the corner. 2 million and 3 million are incredibly high, right? So ALX really is a scaling engine. How do we tackle some of the world's biggest problems using the potential that we have sitting with us here? So our ecosystem, to date, ALX has graduated over 92,000 young people. This year, January to April, this is excluding our intake that ends at the end of May. We've enrolled 234,000 students on the continent into our tech programs. And we take everything from acquisition, so marketing, education, selection. How do you select for scale? We train, we graduate, and then we move our young people into a fellowship, which is a global tech community. And community is magic, right? So when I said that we reduce the barriers to entry, it means that if you're between 18 and 34, you have a passport from a country on the continent, you pass our 30-minute selection test, 30 minutes, and we test for English, we test for personality, perseverance, and rational thinking. 3 things. And you pass the selection test, you're able to get into our programs. We don't require you to have any experience. We don't require you to have any qualifications. You can come in with a matric. And in fact, we do have people who are coming into our programs just having a matric. An example of our programs: software engineering, data science, data analysis, AWS, cloud computing, Salesforce, so digital marketing, some of the programs that we offer. So community is important because it's hard, right? You come into these courses, you only have a matric. Community, your peers, your mentors are really how you get through our programs. And then SAN Technologies, we're a B2B tech services provider. We're not an NGO. We use the top 5 to 10% of our talent in our own tech solutions. So the proof is in the pudding. We use our talent in our tech programs, in our tech verticals. So that's just some context of who we are. And now some context about the opportunities and some of the issues that we see. So Africa is still rising. It's a 2016 article. I mean, Africa is still rising, so it's still very relevant. Despite slowed growth and development in some African markets, especially in high growth countries, the potential remains massive. We are sitting on, and we're home to a rapidly growing talent pool that's set to surpass India and China's workforce by 2035. Again, around the corner. Some numbers: by 2050, Africa is going to add almost 600 million people to the global workforce and be home to the largest and youngest population globally. 19 is our average age. South Africa is a little bit older, but still young, compared to 48 in Japan, 38 in China. 12 years before our workforce is larger than China and India's. And only 2.6% of the world's software engineers are African. Demand in the tech space globally, shortage of tech skills locally in South Africa, overseas. This is what we're seeing. There's an opportunity here. We're in the cusp of something great. Paradox: if we double click into the South African context, the demand for university education far exceeds available places and funding. So we see this. 40% bachelor's pass rate, but people coming out of high school, disillusioned, bottlenecks in inclusion, accessibility to these spaces, and affordability. University of Joburg, 283,000 applications for 2024. They can only take 10,500. WITS, 146, can only take 6,200. This is not going to get better. How do we solve for our talent problem? Well, not talent problem, talent potential, work problem at scale. The challenges come up that you now get highly competitive admissions processes. The need for very strict selection criteria, right? Because you've got so many people coming through, you really do have to select very strictly. Funding constraints hinder the growth, so you don't get into public. Private TVET colleges, you're hit by funding constraints. 56% of our undergrads qualify for NSFAS, so need additional funding. So you get students from working class households, they often don't qualify for NSFAS, but they can't afford higher education. So paradox in South Africa, and something that we need to solve for when we're thinking about solving these problems at scale. The deficit, so this pipeline is growing year on year. Significant economic impact. So we've got a 2023, over 500,000 matriculants. Amazing. They've done incredibly well. You've got 13.4 million people in public and independent schools, right? So year on year, people are coming out of high schools and they're moving into a block in the pipeline. Economic impact, incredibly high youth unemployment rates, higher if you're between 15 and 24. 4.6 million unemployed youth, and a mismatch between education and job market demands, right? So we employ our young tech talent, and we see it. You don't need a university degree. You don't need 3 to 5 years of experience. Yes, it helps, but can you train it? So a mismatch between the actual work that needs to be done and the gateways that are preventing our young people from actually getting into these spaces. And then finally, to talk about the impact of AI on employment, right? You'll have one side completely where AI is going to destroy all of our jobs, especially in the creative spaces. On the complete other side, you've got AI running our world economies at some point in time, right? The reality is there's a dual impact. World Economic Forum report, AI is projected to displace 85 million jobs, but also create 97 million new jobs. Tech-oriented roles are going to surge, so the emergence of AI drives the demand in certain roles, right? Data science, data analytics, machine learning, AI ethics is going to be incredibly important going forward, and cybersecurity. So I think the term that I really like when we're talking about AI is creative destruction. The new technology revolutionizing our structure while simultaneously destroying. It's phasing out manual and repetitive tasks at this point in time, right? But the reality of this is part and parcel of where the world is going. It's something that we need to become literate on, right? So when you're talking about skills development, on top of technical skills, we're also talking about soft skills, right? Which is the need for those skills are never going to go away, but also AI literacy. So if you're in a job, you need to know what's happening. I mean, this is coming, this is here. If you're moving forward, if you're a young person coming out of matric, similarly, it's something that you need, right? And then I think finally, to talk about a little bit of a model of how we're thinking about it, right? And this is not the model, this is the model that we're looking at, that we've iterated towards over the last couple of years to be able to acquire, select, train, graduate, and employ at scale, right? So you need to focus on scalable solutions to demand-led skills, reducing the barriers to entry, and then a talent export strategy, which might be a little bit contentious. So scalable solutions, again, millions of young people in the current economy, hundreds of thousands of young people in South Africa coming out of high school on a yearly basis. The only way we solve the solution is a scalable solution, right? That means you need to be able to acquire those young people, and you need to educate them, right? AI, we think, is I mean, it's a very tech-centric term. We put out a course called AI Career Essentials. We thought the AI would be an amazing hook, fully sponsored, free. AI turned young people off, right? Some jumped into it immediately. Others said, well, actually, you know what? I'm not a tech person, AI's tech, right? So that communication, that acquisition at scale, selection at scale, and reducing the barriers to entry, right? So when I'm talking about reducing the barriers to entry, similarly, people can't afford it. How can we bring down these costs and make these courses fully sponsored? How do we get someone who is intimidated by technology, intimidated by these specific courses? How do you bring them in? How do you convince them to apply? How do you convince them to stick in your program in as much that they graduate? And then demand-led skills, right? Again, one model that we've looked at, where is the global economy going, right? If you Google top 10 jobs in tech, most markets, software engineering, data scientists, data analysts, cloud computing, it's the same, it's ubiquitous, and that sort of demand is not going to go away, and it's not really going to shift significantly. Some courses, yes, might change and might iterate, but the core of it is going to be there. It's going to be the same, and that's how we need to sort of focus on this. And then a talent export strategy, I'll leave to last, right? But when we're talking about demand-led skills, we need to look at our demographic, our customers, right? So learners who already have jobs. Can you design a tech upskilling program that someone can do part-time while they're working, while they're studying somewhere else, right? Because the reality of South Africa is you've got someone who's got a master's degree sitting at home trying to upskill themselves, right? Or someone trying to finish a master's degree, trying to upskill themselves. So can you do all of this at once? Part-time programs, how we do it is cloud computing, AWS. I've got someone whose last year was an LLB student at the University of Johannesburg. I think this is her last year. She's still carrying on. She graduated with a AWS Cloud Computing Certificate and Solutions Architect Certificate this year. So it can be done. Learners who are looking for jobs. So you're coming out of matric. How do you focus on soft skills? And how do you get used to a cadence of a scalable solution, right? And scalable solutions in education mean how do you deliver programs remotely while still having a touch of in-person interactions, because that in-person interactions really is magic. So soft skills, incredibly important, right? Because the tech skills and how we teach it is a means to an end, right? It's the foot in the door. Once you're in, you need the soft skills to sell yourself, your skills, the things that you can do. So tech foundations, yes, critical thinking, quantitative reasoning, leadership. Can you work in a team? Can you jump on, join a remote team working for a company sitting in the States and immediately pick up Slack, right? So that's when we're talking about those sort of soft skills and a professional toolkit. I'm gonna buzz by the barriers to entry. We talked about it, blended learning, scalable solutions, reducing the cost per enrollment, the cost per learner, and reducing the selection requirements, because potentially, those courses in and of themselves can be a selection process. And then talent export, right? So let's say we solve this, right? ALX is, we've enrolled 200 and something odd thousand. Let's say we fail completely and only 50,000 graduate. 50,000 is incredible. Can the markets absorb it? And if that's the goal for this year, and our goal is 750,000 young people enrolled, because 2035 is around the corner. So 750,000 this year, it needs to increase next year and increase in the year afterwards, right? It needs to be scalable, sustainable. What happens with the talent? So talent export doesn't mean brain drain necessarily. Talent works remote. We've got this case. Some of our learners sitting and working at home for companies in America, if they have load shedding, if they're hit by low internet, they come into our tech hubs and they work. Second is global companies set up shop on the continent, global capability centers or captive centers, right? So invite external companies, set up delivery centers here. We've got a tech hub based in Bromfontein. End of last year, we had an OTT company come in, met the talent, visited the hub, saw that we had internet, great equipment, no power issues. The building's got 2 generators, sold, and we're setting up a delivery center. 25 people employed. So other companies setting up shop, and then obviously you will have people who move to global markets. Not a problem if we produce talent at a massive scale, because we still have enough to service our local markets. Then quickly, we're sitting on a time bomb. Realistically, massive unemployment. 2022, we surveyed over 60,000 jobs across 5 African cities. Monthly salary for these jobs, for college grads, $234 a month. Not great. South Africa, significantly higher, 674. But how do you survive long-term on such low pay? It's only a matter of time before this erupts. The solution needs to be now, and we need to solve this for scale. So for us, to enable more dignified and fulfilling work, we need that talent export strategy. Take someone from $234 to $2,000 per month, which is what some of our grads are earning. Exporting our talent to global markets creates that opportunity for our youth to more fully realize the value of their human capital. So that's the end of it for me. Again, just one model, not the model, but it's a model that we've iterated and come to after many, many, many years of trying and failing. Thank you, and hopefully talk soon.
Thank you so much for that, Divesh Sika, all the way from ALX, and for telling us about all of the different opportunities that ALX has to offer. I'm currently busy with my PhD, and I'm realizing I'm going to have to go back and study some more in terms of the tech space. So if you're watching online and you're feeling the same way as me, let's jump into that ocean together and let's give it a go. So we've got a workshop, a very exciting workshop that's coming up next. And then after the workshop, we're going to have lunch, which I know a lot of you have been looking forward to. So first, we're going to have a workshop. There's going to be 2 workshops that are happening, one in this main hall and another one that is going to happen in, I think it's Hall D, which is just if you go on the right. So I'm going to tell you about them, and you get to decide which workshop you would like to be a part of. So firstly, the workshop that's happening in this venue is called Breaking into the Boys Club, the importance of mentorship for women leading in tech. Is gender inequality still existent, rather, at work? And how can women navigate being a female leader in the tech space and establish a formidable presence as females in digital and STEM industry. This is not only for women, all right? That's just to say, if you are a male, you can attend this as well because you are mentors too. So this is not to say that this session is exclusively for women. Then we have an exciting workshop happening next door, which is about relevance, the next generation of fintech, which is going to be provided or hosted rather by Mukuru. So over there, we're going to learn about how your business can stay relevant in an ever-changing and competitive fintech landscape, and so much more. So I'm going to give you about 1 minute to make a very quick decision right now where you are going to be and where your future lies. And you're going to decide either if you're staying here or if you're going next door for the other workshop. Awesome. Let's do that now. Don't worry, I won't get offended if you stand up and leave. Wonderful. So if you are still here, I'm going to assume that you are part of workshop 1, which is breaking into the boys club. And I'm just going to announce our speakers, some who are here and some who will be tuning in virtually. So first up, we've got Victoria Kumalo, the founder and executive director of Girls in STEM Trust, who is going to be tuning in virtually in Kigali, Rwanda. Second, we've got Lara Rosmarin, the head of entrepreneurial development at UVU Accelerate. Lara, are you here? Lara's coming up on stage. We're going to give her a round of applause once she gets on stage with all of the other speakers as well. Next, after that, we've got Akamba Jikela, who is the head of the Southern Region for Centec. We're going to give her a round of applause as well. And last to join my panel is Rashika Ramlal, the country manager and executive director at Amazon Web Services, South Africa. Welcome, ladies. Please join me on stage. And welcome to you too, Victoria, joining us virtually. We haven't forgotten about you. Great. So, breaking into the boys club. Interesting topic. We're going to start off with you, Victoria, as you are joined in virtually. And my question to you, as the founder and executive director of Girls in STEM Trust, what gender inequality is still at play in the tech sector? Give me 2 seconds. We're going to see if we can try and hear you. I can't hear you at the moment. Just going to check with the tech team. Should I move on? Okay, we're gonna come back to you, Victoria. Let's keep that question in mind because it's so pivotal in setting the scene for this discussion. But as we get you on board, my question is going to come to you, Lara, as the head of entrepreneurial development at UVU Accelerate. What are some of the factors contributing to gender inequality in STEM?
So it's really great to be here with you all, representing UVU Accelerate, which is the entrepreneur division and incubation division of UVU Accelerate. So we've been in the market for 25 years. And if I have to think back to the beginning, when I used to go to meetings many, many years ago, I was often the only woman in the room and the only woman at these meetings. And now that has shifted. I'm in rooms with unbelievable women, incredible women that are doing amazing things. But I think perhaps the topic, the boys' club, may have scared off some people as I saw like a migration out of that door. But I wanted to say that I've been very lucky in that I've had amazing support by male role models, male mentors, other male CEOs that have really opened doors for me and given me the opportunity to sit at tables where only men were sitting. And when I look at our UVU Africa Exco, and some of my colleagues are here today in the room. Fiona Tabraham's here, she's the CEO of Capacity. We're a very heavily female-dominated Exco team, which is amazing. So if we look at STEM and we look at the way that the trends are going, I think the gap is becoming smaller. And I'm very excited about that. And whenever we bring in a cohort of, be it entrepreneurs or be it capacity candidates, we always get really excited that female representation is good. And we want to continue that going forward. So all those men that left because they thought we were going to sit up here and say, well, we didn't get the help that we needed, and perhaps you were nice. That wasn't my experience at all. I've really had very generous, gracious, inclusive experiences in working with men in this particular industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Laura. Victoria, we're still trying to get you, so I haven't forgotten about you. We're going to get back to your question just now. But I have a question for you, Kakamba. I struggle with the concept of the glass ceiling because the glass ceiling to me is see-through, which makes it seem like it's not there. I see a physical ceiling, a very much present ceiling. And so my question to you would be, what are some of these ceilings and barriers that women have to jump over to break into the tech sector?
Thank you so much for that question, and greetings, everyone. So for me, the main one is the society. I mean, the society, they actually influence and draft our way forward. And, in the society, it has actually been identified that most of these disciplines are more suitable for men. And tapping into that environment where it is perceived that it is an environment or a discipline for males, and having to navigate through that, it is a mission. And also in the society as well, you will get that most women are supposed to be in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning. And, and it actually hinders growth on women in this industry, because one is perceived that this is not where you belong. And we also feel uncomfortable or without our abilities, even though we have all the qualifications, we meet all the standards, but those contributors, they really influence how we progress. It actually starts at a very young age as well, where one chooses subjects that are outside this industry, so that by the time it gets to college, the imbalance is already there. And when you get out into the field, the mentors are limited for female as well. So it actually starts at a very, very young age, and it grows with us. But as Laura also indicated, that gap is actually getting smaller and smaller as we navigate through this. And also it is perceived also that the life-work balance is also another challenge for us women, because at times you would think that I need to rush to pick up the kid, but the environment or the demanding job that we are doing doesn't allow us at that specific point in time. So there are a number of these barriers, and they are really coming to a point where the gap is actually minimized. So having experienced it, and actually acting as a role model for young ones, they actually also see that there is an opportunity for aspiring young women in the field. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that insight. I think from the panel today, we can clearly see that there is opportunity for us here. And that's not to say that if you are a woman who chooses to stay at home and cook, there's a problem with you. No, the problem is when we are boxed as that being the only thing that we can do. So thank you so much for those insights. I'm going to hop over to you, Rashika, as the public sector country manager of Amazon Web Services Africa. What skills and values do women bring into the sector?
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. I feel very, very strongly about women empowerment in the organizations as well as in society. I think the skills that women bring to organizations particularly is so important. It's the typical skills that they have from their qualifications and so on, like any man or woman would have, and that's normal and natural. But I think it's a little bit more than that. Women by nature are nurturers, women by nature are empathetic, and that diversity is what they bring to the organization that sometimes is missing. And it's so critical to have in the organization. So when you are developing products and services to take to market, that inclusivity, that diversity of a woman's perspective, that nurturing perspective, that empathetic perspective is what she will bring to the table when you are developing products and services or business strategy. If you take a look at also the biggest market out there is women. Women are the biggest purchasers of many things in society, if you really think about it. So when you are addressing a market, you need to also consider women that are going to be your customers. And so when you bring a woman to the table, in order to make those decisions, you're bringing diversity and encouraging products and services for women as well. And I think another thing that women bring to the table in terms of skills is, again, I said nurturers, but they also the beacon for their families, for their children. And they want to see a society that is thriving, an economy that is thriving, that is safe for their children. And they want to ensure that they create that environment and that ecosystem for their kids. And by doing that, when you bring these children to these women to the organization, they think about those kind of things. The environments that they want to create for their children, the products and services that they want to sell out there, how it should be displayed, how it should be sold, or what are the ethics behind it, and so on. So if you think about AI, for instance, when you have a room of males thinking about AI, and they would go into deep tech. When you bring a woman to the table, she's thinking about her children. What is the future of AI for her children? What jobs are they going to have? What kind of skills do they need to have? So she brings a different perspective altogether. And I think it's so important to make sure that there's women in the room when there's decision-making happening, because you want that diversity.
Definitely. I think that's a crucial point. And I mean, it makes me think of the fact that we were born into a world that was designed somewhat for men. So if we think about the office chair, for example, it was designed to fit the male anatomy. And now we are designing a world that features AI, that features technology, and we ought to have women in the room as we design that to make sure that it includes them. We have that power that we didn't have before, and I think that's incredible. I'm going to try and see if I can get you back, Victoria. Could you say a word for me? No, I haven't got you yet, but we will keep on trying. I promise we're going to hear all of your information very soon. And to let the audience know, this is a workshop, so we're having a conversation. So there's going to be definitely opportunity for Q&A. So if you've got any questions, start writing them down. I'm going to ask just a couple more, and then I'm going to hand over to the audience. All right, back to you, Lara. So now that we've established that there are barriers and things that women are facing, how do you navigate breaking into this boys' club as a woman in tech?
So I went to a very interesting talk a little while ago by Melinda Gates. She was still married to Bill Gates at the time. And they were having a discussion, she told us, around the school choices for their children. And their children they wanted their children to go to school an hour this way from their house, but the Microsoft head office was an hour this way from their house, which meant that if Bill took to school, he'd have to drive an hour that way, an hour home, and then an hour that way. So it was a 3-hour drive. And she said, well, if we just agree as a family that the kids need to go to that school, you need to split the lifts with me. I'm also running the foundation. I've also got stuff to do. And then we need to divide the lifts. He agreed. Anyway, so the parents of the school started noticing Bill Gates was dropping his kids off at school, and then they'd worked it out how far he'd have to go to the Microsoft head office. So the principal called her in and she said, you've started a revolution. She said, what do you mean? She said, a whole lot of women are now going home to their husbands and saying, if Bill Gates can take 3 hours to bring their kids to school, you can surely drive from down the road. So it was doing something that she didn't even realize she was creating. But I think that we're just staying true to our purpose. We're staying focused to our goals. I'm not too taken in by the sideshows in terms of the work that we do. We at Uber Accelerate and Uber Africa, we have such a huge, oh, she's back. We can hear you. We have,
Yes, I can. I'm going to, thank you so much. Great to know that we can hear you. Thanks, tech team. We're going to get to your question in just a few seconds. Go
so
ahead,
just
Maya.
say we've got this huge purpose and we've got these massive goals to really, really make an imprint all over Africa, that I'm not so focused on what barriers there are. We're trying to come up with solutions to those barriers. So if we see a roadblock, we get around the table and figure out, well, what do we need to unblock that challenge? And our CEO is unblock is a word that we hear a lot from our CEO. What do we need to do to unblock that challenge? And we could sit around for hours talking about the challenge, but I'm not sure that that is as helpful. So we put our heads together. What do we need to do to unblock that challenge? What do we need to do to make certain skills and services and programs available to more people in more provinces or more people in more countries? And I think that is where we're very much focusing.
Thank you so much, Lara. And I don't want to go back to the challenges, as you said. I want to move forward. So I'm going to change my question that I previously said to you, Victoria, to what do you think about mentorship for women? Is it necessary in the tech sector? And if it is, how can women find such mentors in the tech space?
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Great to hear your voice.
Awesome. Great. So wonderful to be here virtually. I would love to be here. I'm in the opposite direction, actually. But yeah, so very insightful, thoughts and comments coming through from the ladies on the panel. And I think it's a universal type of issue that we have with women breaking into tech and women breaking into tech. But mentorship is really important. I mean, from the get-go, the pipeline was already flawed, it was already skewed right from the beginning. Very many young girls and young women don't see themselves in STEM roles. They don't see themselves in STEM leadership. And so ultimately, you can't be what you cannot see. And so it's very important, to have the guidance and support that mentorship gives in a very safe and accommodating environment. And we literally have women that are have been there, done that, and can literally handhold you through, navigating the tech career and the tech journey. And also, it's a confidence booster. When you see women reaching out to leadership roles and in technology and kind of navigating that terrain, and it kind of validates you if you're a young woman that's thinking of going that route. It does, validate you to say, hey, if Laura could do it, I could do it, and so on. That's so important. And how do you find your mentor? That's a very interesting one. I mean, I have several mentors actually, and the beautiful thing is that the world is so connected, and LinkedIn is an amazing space for you to reach out to people in an informal way, but get to know them, in a professional way. And I found that if you try to call somebody on their direct line at work, or try to send them an email, chances are you may not actually get a response or get through to them. But hey, Crystal, I mean, a lot of them LinkedIn, and it was absolutely amazing to actually send somebody a connection request and literally be able to DM them and start a conversation. So that's one of the pivotal ways you can do that. Another is professional organizations. I mean, just having this conversation as a side workshop at African Tech in itself is already a very fertile mentorship environment as it is. So, reach out, find out what women's technology networks exist in your area, and not just only your area because tech is so global, you know what's happening around the world. Just try and go global with that. So you have your women in tech, you have your AI for goods, you have so it's really important to literally put yourself in a space where not only do you self-advocate for yourself by showing up in the right rooms, but also going into networks where there are like-minded females, such as yourself. And so I think that is one way in which you could go on the mentorship.
I just want to add to the previous two questions as well. So the one thing that you said about breaking into the boys' club, I think it extends a little bit more than that, right? And I think as women in leadership positions or in any position, you'll realize that it's not just about the boys' club. And I want to tell you that The boys don't do it on purpose. They just don't know. They really don't know. You know, when they're in the room and there's boys and they're having a discussion, and if you don't speak up, you're not noticed, right? So it's not by purpose. It's just, it happens that way. So speak up. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as women, there's a little bit of a challenge there, but because there's so few leadership roles or tech roles or roles that you want to get into, the women amongst us compete. And instead of holding each other up and supporting each other and fixing each other's crowns, we start competing with each other. And I think that also needs to be addressed in the room. And that's something that as women, we need to stand up for each other, advocate for each other, support each other, and realize that there's many opportunities and there's an abundance of success out there. We don't need to compete. We can create our own opportunities. That's the first thing. The second thing, in terms of mentorship, I think mentorship is so super important. But I also think sponsorship is also super important in the organization, such that when you are not in the room, who is sponsoring your name, your voice, championing your message out there? So also remember that as well, to create a mentor to guide you in terms of when you are going through something and you want guidance in terms of how do you handle a particular situation, but you also need to build sponsorship in the organization to champion your voice.
Thank you so much for that, Rashika. Do you want to add
I
on
wanted
as
to
well?
echo what these two wise ladies have said around mentorship. Just something else that we've found to be incredibly valuable is more than one mentor. So what I would say to entrepreneurs or ventures that are coming to meet with us, one mentor isn't necessarily going to be able to answer every question you have or help you through every challenge you've got. But if you have a team of mentors around you, it's almost like your support team around you to help you with the different challenges. For example, if you're not strong in finance or the finance of your business or your division, it's just you feel that you're missing some things. Find a finance mentor to help you upskill. Do some online courses, but find somebody to hold you through that. If in your business there's a marketing gap, find a mentor who's got marketing expertise that can guide you around those issues. If it's a business development gap that you need help with, I think that the expectation that one mentor is going to have the answer to every question or a silver bullet isn't necessarily going to send you on the path that you're hoping. And I think you alluded to it. A team of mentors, a group of people to help you. I mean, imagine having your own board of directors for yourself that is there just to help and guide you, and they've got your best interests at heart. And they don't only need to be women. They could be a combination of men and women. So you get, as you were mentioning, the different viewpoints of what's happening. So imagine you had a personal team of mentors. You can only but win.
That's right. Thank you so much for that, Laura and Victoria, for kickstarting our conversation on mentorship. Like you said, the fact that a panel like this exists is validating in itself. If you're looking for mentorship, they're here as well. So I think just being here shows us that it is possible and it can be done. I've got one more question for my panelists, and then I'm going to open it up for the rest of the audience. I'm going to start with you, Kwakamba. And my question to you is, many women in tech have expressed facing belittlement by their male colleagues, and that's something that we can't ignore. So how can mentors or even colleagues help women to identify, firstly, and then secondly, to respond to these subtle yet damaging behaviors without creating that us versus them mentality, which already comes with the idea of a boys' club and a girls' club? How can we mitigate that?
So the first thing is to fight that a lack of confidence, so that we also feel like we are supposed to be here. It is not by default, but we're supposed to play in this space. And also, when we do that, we actually need to keep ourselves also abreast in terms of the technologies. Remember, we are in an evolving industry. Technology continuously evolves. So for us to also gain that confidence, we need to keep up with what is happening around us. And immediately when you speak up and you present facts, you will be recognized. It doesn't have to be an arrogant approach, but it needs us to also be vocal in terms of what we are bringing onto the table. So it is important that we also communicate and speak up and also advise where possible.
Wonderful. I'm going to look to the audience now and see if we have, I've got one question over here, And I've got two over there, two questions from gentlemen. I love to see it. So if we can have the mic. Have you got a mic with you? No, you don't. Not yet. If we could have a mic given to, there's one gentleman over here, and then there's one down there as well. Whilst we wait for the mic, though, could you maybe project, and then I'll just repeat your question, sir. Yes.
Okay. Hi, ladies. Well, just on the light note, I couldn't just quite observe that there isn't any male figure of the audience there, not even virtually. And that's just on the light note anyway. I'm from Kimberley in the Northern Cape, and I'm part of the consortium called Green Horizon Project. And thanks. And yeah, so I'm part of a consortium called Green Horizon Project, and we are, our core focus is dedicated towards inclusivity of women, particularly in training young people with a focus on young women, incubating them to become solar installers, to get women to participate in the in the just energy transition. And we do this nationally. We part of our consortium includes the Soplake University and Digify Africa, and so we go nationally, and we recruit young women into our programs and train them. And so I wanted to just, it's not really a question, just really a commendation to all the work that you women are doing, and also to say that we as men do go out of our way to support some of the initiatives in order to try and breach the gap in terms of empowering women, in terms of skills development and so forth.
Thank you so much for that comment.
May I ask him a question? May I ask you a question? In
Absolutely.
terms of I think it's amazing that you are providing opportunities for women and there's a focus on women. How does your training differ that you would offer to women as opposed to training that you would offer to men within the same sector? Would there be any difference?
To be honest with you, our main thing, it's, when you look at skills, skills is gender neutral. It's, especially because we're trying to bridge the gap in terms of solar installers. There aren't a lot of black solar installers who are certified, in the industry anyway. So that's one big challenge. So in terms of our training modality, no, there is no difference, except that we focus mainly in transferring those skills into women, because we're trying to accelerate
Bridge the
women in
gap.
the just energy
Got it.
transition space.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that and for answering the question as well. We've got one over there. It was a gentleman. If you could put your hand up again. There you are. If we could just get the mic to him, and then we'll see if we do have time for one more.
Hi.
Hello.
So male with 37 years experience. I'd like to apologize on behalf of my gender for all of the deplorable behavior over the years. I think I've led a few all-female teams over the years, and I think men have a reputation, a very well-earned reputation, in the workspace and in boardrooms. And I've noticed that some of the people on the team, some of the females on the teams, there's a bit more trepidation than others in order to get involved and get stuck in, and accept kind of roles within organizations. But I'd like to think that as millennials and later Gen Z will come into the boardrooms, that it'll be less and less angry dudes with suits and scary voices, which it does tend to be. Laura, you said that your experience has been good. My question is, has the experience been the same for the other ladies in the panel? And I guess my main question is, if not, how can men, or what can men do to make that space seem safer from the other side of the table?
Thank you so much for that question. I think that's a brilliant question to get everyone to somewhat tie up this conversation that we're having. I'm going to start with you, Victoria. I don't know if you managed to hear that question, Perfect. If you could give us your insights, has it been a good experience for you? Has it not? And how can men make it better?
Awesome. No, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the gentleman really for kind of acknowledging that, because I think that's the first step in us kind of, fixing what's going on in the ecosystem. So my recommendation was to go bittersweet. Bitter at the beginning, but sweet now. And I've been, kind of been in the tech game for about 15 years plus now. And in the beginning, as what Laura said, it would always be you're one out of two women on a technology board. And to try and get a word in is, wow. Yeah, you have to kind of come to the majority or whatever. And, also the interruptions as you see, because it's more of, you're like the gender diversity hire here. So it's not really, interested in hearing what you have to say and that type of thing. But it's wonderful to see that we call it mansplaining, when the man may want to say things out because they think you don't understand the technical concepts and that type of thing. So I'm glad to see that the mansplaining is pretty much, it's been dialed down a bit, I think, as the generations continue to kind of break their way into tech and that type of thing. And taking credit for ideas, particularly for a junior hire. No matter how shocked you are as a young lady, it's always, no, there's no way that idea could come from you, absolutely not. So that was that from the beginning. Fast forward to a lot more of these interactive conversations that we're having and the consistency. So the consistency for me in women, kind of wanting to be heard, women gaining confidence, women literally realizing that they don't need to bring a seat to the table. That seat that's there on the table, if they wanted to, they could take it. And for me, it's becoming, kind of what we want to see as women in tech. However, I wanted to say earlier about the reason why sometimes the talent pipeline for tech among women isn't as great as it should be, and it just boils down to the issue of socialization. And I think you mentioned that a little bit earlier. So because the tech roles, tech jobs, tech leadership in particular, is very demanding. You're doing a whole lot early morning, late nights, your kids, your husband, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it could be that culturally the dynamics aren't, for women in books, the dynamics won't, the optics of that won't look as good. And so navigating that, trying to get your work-life balance, I've heard this about work-life balance, trying to get that and trying to integrate that to get a workplace, culture that accepts that sometimes your child is sick and you go to that child meeting is where we need to get to, I think, for us to push forward. So that would be my experience.
Thank you so much for that, Victoria. And I'm going to come over to you, Rashika. What has your experience been? Has it been positive, negative, somewhere in between?
It's been mixed, very much mixed. I think when I started off my career, I had the very similar experiences, right? In terms of not being heard, not being given a seat at the table, being considered as an employment equity, hire, a number, essentially, not having a voice. But I think over the years, what has happened is I gained a lot more confidence. I built up my skills. I made sure I was really clued up in my area of expertise. And I really built my confidence. And when you build your confidence in that way, you have data points to support your argument, then nobody can stand against that, right? So you really need to be strong in terms of your technical expertise or the expertise that let's say you're in marketing, your marketing expertise, you need to be on point with the data points. So that supported me a long way. And then of course, the confidence to speak up. I remember one incident where as a leader, I walked into the room and one of the gentlemen asked me to make tea. And it was interesting, right? Because at that point in time, I had so much of confidence in me that I made the tea willingly, smilingly. And I went and sat down, and when we started the conversation and did the intros, then he realized who I was. And I said, he apologized. And I said, no, please don't apologize. I was making tea for myself anyway, but next time it's on you. So that's how you need to handle it. Don't be, push aside and be offended that they asked you to make tea. You can make tea. It's fine. But the next time, it's on him. So that was one of my experiences. I think over the years as well, I've had very good experiences. I had incredible mentors and incredible male managers that put me in the limelight and put me forward, even though I did not think I was capable. They put me forward and put me there, and they believed in me. And that's how I rose through the ranks. So I'm very grateful to those experiences as well. I think what you as males can do better, as well as organizations can do better, is be cognizant of women and their needs. Women have kids, they prioritize their children. Allow for family work balance, or not even family work balance, right? We all create our own family work life balance. Allow for flexibility. So if she needs to go and pick up her kids at 1 o'clock, then allow for that flexibility because she'll make up the time. She's very, very responsible that way. She doesn't want to lose her job. It's a means for her family. So allow that flexibility. So flexibility is so important, but also remember you have a woman at the table. You need to consider your environment. Is it suitable for women? Are you allowing for diversity of thought in the boardroom? Are you hearing everybody's voice? So those are the important things.
Thank you so much for that. You're better than me. I would have put salt instead of sugar in the tea. But that's my personal issue. And lastly to you, Akamba, what has your experience been like?
So I actually want to go back to that point to say the male roles, they actually do play a huge support foundation for us women as well. So it doesn't have to be women mentors that are surrounding us that can actually equip us to navigate through the challenges. But even the male roles, we need to acknowledge them because they actually influence how we then face the challenges. And also they are looking at a different perspective, even from a mentorship. So support does go a long way in shaping the young woman's career in this industry. And it doesn't have to come from a specific gender.
Wonderful. Nice, short, and sweet. I have been told that we've got time for one more question, so let's try squeeze. I did recognize that there was one more question over there. Straight after this is lunch, so we have a little bit of time to have a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for making sure you recognized me. I was a little concerned there for a second. Look, this is a question from both myself and the lady next to me. Something we really, really would love to know is how to identify, first of all, how to find the people who you can see would be a good mentor. Like, how do you identify this person would be willing to be a mentor, first of all? And second of all, how do you even begin to start that relationship to say, listen, I would like a mentor, because it doesn't matter how far up you go up the ladder, you always want support. For me personally, I'm a marketing executive at this point, but that doesn't mean I still don't need help. I don't need, so how do we start those conversations?
Thank you so much for that question. I'm going to ask if there's one panelist who can address this. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for that question. And I know it can be daunting to just approach people that you see you want to be in a leadership relationship with. But I think maybe the starting point has always been with you individually, yourself, right? Myself. If you have clear goals of what you want from a mentorship relationship, it becomes relatively easy to find out who to identify within a specific network that might fit those goals, right? So be clear about where your career is going, what your aspirations are like, and what exactly the mentor is going to do within that mentorship relationship. What role would you like them to play, right? So that narrows down, obviously, to a certain group of people, right? And then also secondly, communication. So unless you reach out, you're never going to know if they would love to take you on board for a communication, for a relationship, right? And if you do get to a point where that is accepted, you also have to be accountable to yourself and to your mentor, right? And I often say that the mentorship relationship is the back and forth. So as a mentee, you would like to learn something from your mentor, and your mentor is learning something from you, right? So a successful mentorship relationship is a two-way street. So I think that would be the starting point. That's where I would start, and I would really be proactive about seeking out people in similar roles. I'm sure you have an idea of the type of people that you would like to be a mentor, but also following them on their socials, knowing what they're doing. Are you doing any work that has like perhaps social impact work, or work where they're literally just giving out advice for free? That would be a good
Thank you so much, Victoria. Laura, you want to add
I
something?
just want to add something. When I look at the women that I'm surrounded by, we're often approached by people when we do talks like this, follow-ups on LinkedIn, emails, phone calls, in all sorts of ways. But I think what's great is we cross-refer to each other. So if somebody approaches me and said, "Are you able to mentor me? These are my gaps," I'm often able to say to them, "I don't think I'm the right fit for you, but I do know somebody that I think would be a great fit for you." And I will make that connect in to say, "I met so-and-so, they approached me. I think you'd be a better fit than I would." So when you start the conversation, they'll open other doors for you as you go along. And you're even open to say to them, if you don't have time, or, perhaps in your network, of somebody that has the same skills as you, that's able to assist me. And we always seem to find a way to redirect people within our networks as women. I mean, I could phone tomorrow and say, "This woman approached me, would any of you guys be able to help?" And they would put up their hands and say yes, we'd open our doors too. So just start somewhere, pick one. Just pick one.
Just pick one.
Start.
Thanks a lot, Laura. And I also just want to say, to the mentors who are giving of their time and their skills, what you're doing is valuable work. I recently reached out to a male mentor, and his response was an invoice. And I completely understand. As the first time I thought, what? But I get it. I understand. He said, my time is valuable. And if I'm going to share it with you, this is how much it costs. And so to the mentors who are going above and beyond and doing it out of their free will and doing it just because they want to, thank you. And if you're also charging, thank you, because there is value in what you do. So that brings our workshop to a close. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause as they make their way downstage. Thank you so much. And to you too, Victoria, for joining us virtually. Wonderful. So we are now going to leave this main hall and we're going to go out for lunch. But before you stand up and go anywhere, I just have a few announcements to do. Firstly, fast track networking. The goal over the next 2 days is that you walk away with knowing 20 people. If 20 seems like a big goal, start with 5. And by the end of today, let's make sure you know 5, 10, and then 15. And it happens very quickly. Your table is already 5. So 5 is done. Tick. Now you just need to meet a second table. So fast track networking. As you're having lunch, don't go off and sit by yourself and not talk to anyone. Please network with each other. That is essentially why we are here. Secondly, as soon as we come back from the break, we're going to be running a lot of different competitions. So it's an exciting time for you to join us and find out if you can win something. And then lastly, we've got 2 fantastic sessions coming up on the potential of fintech to drive financial inclusion and economic growth in Africa. We've got Netbank that's going to be doing a tech talk, as well as a panel discussion involving a lot of different key role players. So with that being said, you have until 2:20 for lunch. So please go out, have some lunch, network, and we will see you soon back in the main hall. Thank you so much.